So I'm here with Dan. I've known Dan for a while now, and I have heard a snippet of this story, and I'm really curious about finding out a little bit more. It's a situation that completely drastically changed Dan's belief systems. So tell me, how did it all start?
So I guess it all started when I was a main participant in a Derren Brown episode that aired back in 2012, I think it was.
I find that show absolutely fascinating, and it's just really interesting what he does and how he completely shakes people's lives up and then creates something that I guess changes their beliefs so people can lead a more fulfilling life.
No, it was a great experience, to be fair. And in fact, the episode that I was in was basically to do with the idea of a placebo. So we were all given this pill that we were told.
I'm curious about what your life was like before this all started. So
Sure.
could you kind of paint a little bit of a picture as to what life was like?
So I guess I was quite an introverted person. Very, very shy growing up. In fact, I probably spent maybe way too much time indoors playing on the PlayStation, not really wanting to go out to socialise or meet people or anything like that. And most of it really came down to the kind of fears that I had just to do with life in general. So from the small fears of like spiders and heights to the idea of actually socialising and meeting people. And yeah, it was obviously a very different kind of time back then. And I can kind of remember just like little bits and pieces of it, of kind of how I felt back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a huge change once after being on this pill, just after 3 months of being told that it would cure your fears and phobias.
So, okay, so you went on the show and then they gave you the pill and he told you to take it for how long?
About 3 months.
Every day?
Yeah, so we had about 4 pills every day. Pretty much we had to have it with like every single meal.
Quite a rigid routine.
Yeah, so and on the actual the first placebo that we had was an injection. So it was a saline solution. It wasn't anything kind of too drastic, but you kind of see it in the episode, and they sort of mention about that injections tend to encourage people more with the belief that whatever the placebo is, it is real.
Yeah.
And they kind of set up the whole situation that we were in a pharmaceutical centre, you know, there were actors and stuff around anyway. So it all made it very realistic.
And I mean, you knew that Derren Brown was involved. Did you not? You'd seen some of his shows before, I assume?
Yeah. You know, and even like after being on the pill for a week, I mean, I was skeptical. I was kind of like, there's Derren Brown, there's got to be something here. But it wasn't until like I came home from work one evening and I hadn't eaten food or anything like that. And when I took the pill, the only way I can kind of describe it, I don't know if you've seen the film Limitless with Bradley Cooper. So they'd kind of pitched to us at the time the idea that, you know, when you're on this pill, you know, colours are going to be more contrasted, you're going to hear stuff further away, you're going to be more mindful, you're going to be more present, all of this and that. And that evening, that is exactly what happened. So suddenly everything seemed brighter. I could hear stuff like from upstairs. I could hear people talking. My thoughts were a lot clearer.
It's like you really were on a drug.
Oh yeah, it was. You know, and what was even more amazing was that it was nothing more than like icing from a cake that was inside this pill. But the belief that suddenly came out of it was just phenomenal, and how that then developed was even more interesting.
So this is really interesting because in CBT we often try to get someone to do drastically different behaviours in order to help change their belief system, but it can be quite challenging to convince people to do that. So actually in your case, you were convinced to do the different behaviours because essentially you were convinced that this pill was working and that you could do things that you weren't able to do before.
Yeah, and what was even more impressive about it was, because I've had friends and people that I've met ask me, oh, so Derren Brown must have done something to him. And I was like, well, actually, no, he didn't do anything. He mostly just kind of watched how people were reacting to being on this pill. So everything that happened to me was really down to my own devices. It was all down to what I was actively doing or what I was convincing myself to do during that time. And even then there were some very sort of like bizarre and out there moments that had happened that would definitely not have happened before, especially even with my own mindset, my creativity on things, and I suppose even my limiting beliefs on stuff as well.
So there was no hypnosis or anything like that involved. It was just this pill. What did he say that the pill was supposed to do?
So they told us that it was used on soldiers out in like Afghanistan to help them with like the war and with plowing through like the most dangerous areas and stuff, and that we were going to be the first kind of individuals or first kind of like normal people to be on these pills to see how it would react on like your normal everyday person.
Did they suggest that you would become more powerful in some way or be able to do things that you weren't able to do before?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they had said to us that, you know, it should reduce your fears and anxiety, all the symptoms that you would normally have, that if you were scared of spiders or heights or claustrophobic spaces, and definitely within weeks, in fact, not even weeks, it was probably within like days that from being on this pill, all of them suddenly disappeared. Like if I saw a spider.
What did you start doing?
I suppose first of all, like heights wise, that was one that was instantly fixed, and you even see that in the episode as well. After I have the injection, we're walking down the corridor, and I think like the 4th floor in this building, and I look over the balcony, and I just don't feel anything. It's just like complete stillness in my own body. It was just. It was mind-blowing because I hadn't felt like that before from being in that kind of experience.
Do you remember what you used to believe about that situation and then what you believed at that point?
Oh yeah, like I would only need to kind of walk near towards like a balcony edge, even if there was like a metal barrier there or something. But even just from walking near it, I would suddenly have that fear of like, I'm going to fall or I'm going to die or, you know, something really kind of drastic.
So quite negative beliefs about safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But now, or at the time, as I would then just sort of walk towards the edge and just look over, I'd be like, I don't feel anything. So that was quite interesting.
Same with spiders?
Yeah. So I absolutely hate spiders. Like I'm terrified of spiders. And even growing up, like if I ever watched a horror movie that had a spider in, literally out of nowhere, a spider would appear, typically running towards me as well. And it always, so any spiders would scare me. Even like the most smallest ones would always be a concern.
Used to look out for them?
Oh, I would get incredibly paranoid about them. Like I would almost kind of like sweep my room before even going to bed sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that there wasn't a spider around. Or if I even saw a shadow, suddenly I would get really paranoid of, is that a spider?
It's very hypervigilant about spiders just appearing.
Yeah.
Which must have really got in the way of just trying to live normal everyday life.
It definitely did get in the way, and it got quite embarrassing as well, where I would have to either like ask friends and family to kill, you know, the most smallest of things that aren't any bigger than a dot, and you know, and they're just sort of in hysterics looking at you going like, that's not going to hurt you, that's not going to do anything to you.
This must have been really debilitating in that you must have been like, gosh, I can't live my life in this way, or maybe you were so redundant to life being this way, you just accepted all
it was
these
most certainly embarrassing, maybe even a smidge of being humiliating as well, but for that to then disappear after about a week or so, because there were occasions then I did start seeing spiders, and I remember actually one time there was a spider, a massive one that had actually it was in the lounge. And I saw it, and I didn't panic. It was as if I just sort of acknowledged it was there. And I was like, right, I'm going to go get a bowl, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get rid of it. And I did, and I went, and normally like they would end up sort of like running off and scattering whatever, and it was still there. And I remember just sort of going up to it and just gently placing the bowl over it, and sort of scooping it out with cardboard afterwards. And I think when I'd sort of taken it outside and got rid of it, I think that was like one of the most proudest moments that I'd ever had, because, you know, again, my fear of spiders is probably the worst out of like any fear that I probably have. And to have dealt with something that was so big that I know would have completely have scared me to death, or I probably would have even run out the house and refused to have gone back in it, or just watched it, knowing that I can't move in case it goes somewhere. I'd have to wait for hours until someone would come home to remove it for me. It was a really kind of proud moment that, again, like I did that. It wasn't someone else who got rid of it. Like I did that, and I did it in a really like nice way as well.
So all these anxieties and fears were starting to dissipate. Did you start to do anything else different in your life?
Yeah. So what was interesting, within after being 3 months on the pill anyway, the first couple of weeks definitely I noticed the fears were kind of dissipating or disappearing. But then it started turning into a little bit of like a motivational kicker. So I got really good at multitasking and being really present in projects that I was doing. So I remember at the time I used to write blogs, and I used to kind of struggle like trying to be creative with what I wanted to write and share. And it would take me a good like 2 hours to write stuff. And then suddenly I was doing them in 20 minutes.
Because your beliefs changed in some way in relation to your abilities.
Yeah, and definitely like my focus on stuff as well. I was a hell of a lot more present and mindful with what I was doing. That then I would start...
So that sounds like a confidence thing.
It definitely, it worked on it as well. So one of the other fears that I'd had was, I guess, kind of being more sociable anyway around people, but definitely even in beliefs within myself and stuff that I never thought that I would be capable of I guess doing. And suddenly it was like, right, well, no, you can do this. Give it a go, see what happens.
What were your old beliefs about social situations, and then what was the change in that through this process?
I guess with my old beliefs, I really never believed that I was good enough to kind of do anything, or that I kind of deserved anything good.
Yeah.
And it's funny, once your fears, or once at least the symptoms are gone, you kind of leave space for just sort of like the good sort of things to come into place, and you start going like, well, actually, no, you can do this.
Yeah.
Why don't you give it a try? There's nothing to lose here. And suddenly like these kind of like better voices were coming in and saying, yeah, we'll do it. And then when I was doing something, and then I realized, well, actually it wasn't so bad, whatever the fear was that I had. And then here's me talking to people, dealing with spiders, looking at heights, or even like claustrophobic spaces. I absolutely hated claustrophobic spaces. Like going on the train, I would purposely wait until rush hour would calm down, so I didn't have to be kind of sardined with other people.
So there's a lot of avoidance in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And it was just, again, fascinating for me that once all these negative thoughts had gone, that I was actually kind of living my life and I was doing stuff. And I don't know where the idea got planted, but something had happened. Something had happened that said to me, why don't you try and start your own business? Why don't you give that a go? Because you're clearly sort of capable of doing all these other things. You don't have to work for other people. You don't have to kind of be at the bottom of the chain. Because I used to work in retail as well, and anyone who works in retail knows like it's a really tough job, and you're very expendable as well. So every single day you're having to deal with a lot of stress and pressure of people.
Yeah.
And I always kind of presumed that was going to be my life, because I'd worked in retail easily for a good 10 years or so. But from being on this pill, the idea of like, well, go for it, you've got nothing to lose. And I did it, and to still kind of think like 6-7 years later, I'm still working for myself, and I've kind of kept on learning new things that I've chosen to do. And that even though there's been a little bit of fear in some of the stuff that I wanted to either have a go at in my own business or help other people with, I've gone for it, and I've done it, and I haven't really held myself back. And and it's just amazing how just those little switches in my own thought process has made a difference to my life.
It's really amazing how the placebo effect actually works in that way. And it's so interesting because it's similar to CBT, but CBT can take a while. You have to really persuade people to try different things. Their beliefs are very, I don't want to say completely set in stone, but beliefs are hard to change. You have to be very persuasive as a therapist to motivate people enough, and to get people to have enough trust in you to try these new things. And it was like on this show, they did things kind of backwards. They changed your beliefs first, and then got the behaviours got you to do the different behaviours, which then reinforced these new beliefs. And with CBT, we kind of do it the other way around. We do the behaviour stuff first, and then we're trying to update the beliefs and cognitions, and then sort of get people to maintain it. So it was like this kind of accelerated process of a life-changing experience, which led you to have quite a different life.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, like the most interesting thing was that it wasn't down to anyone else helping me. Everything that I did was all me, and it was all as well because of just shifting my own limiting beliefs.
Yeah, no therapy involved.
No, I mean, it was all, just self-done and just, yeah, I mean, it really took me by surprise mostly than anything.
A lot of psychology involved, but actually no intervention that we would normally do. And it's quite interesting because there was this deception involved as well. When they revealed what had really happened, the process you'd really been through, how did you feel?
I think you actually see me kind of like face palm in the end of the episode. I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't believe that wasn't real.
Were you upset?
A little bit, because, it's when you get told that this pill is literally changing your life, and it is changing your life.
Would you have stayed taking that pill for the rest of your life?
Well, I
for the
definitely,
rest of your life, if it was real?
I definitely think so. Because what was interesting was, even though that they told us that it wasn't real at the end of it, and that it was fake and it was just icing from a cake, what was interesting, they still encouraged us to carry on taking the pill, but wean ourselves off of it. So where we were having like 4 a day, it went down to like 3 a day, then 2 a day, then 1 a day, and then every other day and stuff.
Even though you knew it didn't do anything?
No, but what was interesting was the physiology that came out of that was still the same. So even though we knew now that it was all fake, it still carried on. Like I was still as productive as I was not knowing that it was a placebo. But definitely once we had been weaned off of it, or once all the kind of pills had run out, eventually you do go back into kind of like your normal habit of what life was like before the placebo.
Yeah.
So definitely, I would probably say maybe like a year down the line, like some of the fears came back, but I think because of being trained so much out of the fear, or being in the experiences where there wasn't any fear, you kind of get more reference experience, and you kind of understand that actually that wasn't so bad. So like I might not like spiders, but I'm okay with them. Yeah. I can handle them appropriately-ish.
And by maintaining the behavioural changes, you should maintain the belief changes. I mean, if you started like picking up tarantulas and doing that on just for 2 hours, you'd sort of be really comfortable with that again.
Yeah, and even again with like the heights, with claustrophobic spaces, with I guess socializing, with meeting people and stuff, it's really nowhere near as bad as it was back then. I mean, now it's, I wouldn't say effortless, but it's definitely so much easier.
So you maintained a huge amount of the changes, and most importantly, the career change, I think, is like one of the biggest things.
Yeah, and I can sometimes actually bring back the experience of what it was like being on the placebo by going through a little bit of like a meditation, sort of like breathing exercise, and that tends to sort of at least get my focus back with bits. But yeah, it was, if anything, it was still such a phenomenal experience. And even again, that everything that happened was all down to me just shifting my own thought process.
Why is it that meditation actually helps you go back there to the placebo effect?
It's something, the only way I can kind of explain it is it's something to do with me, like just calming the mind. And then as soon as I feel that stillness throughout me, it really is like just being back in that situation all those years ago.
So kind of eliminating a lot of the negative thoughts so that you can just carry on, you can be in the present moment and do what you want to do.
Yeah, and letting even that kind of more positive sort of like voice come in as well, and just sort of being more of like a motivational coach in a sense, and just sort of saying like, yeah, you can do this, or give that a try, you've got nothing to lose, nothing bad is going to happen. So being able to then just kind of start questioning any negative belief that does come into my mind, really has kind of helped me to kind of move forward with a lot of things and at least be more proactive in the stuff that I want to do, or at least try.
I think it definitely also kind of highlights the effects of medication. Like a lot of people go on to, for example, antidepressant medication before they really need it, and then they feel like they've maybe had an improvement when actually there is just a placebo. And often people kind of want this quick fix.
I think we all want that kind of magic pill that's going to just suddenly fix all our problems and any negativity that we've got. But yeah, just at the end of the day, we are, from what I've also kind of learned, is that we tend to kind of self-hypnotize ourselves. Like I am very susceptible to being hypnotized, but it's also very easy to convince myself like something's going to go a particular way. But then now knowing like how I can challenge that and question it can really kind of bring that down, and suddenly I am able to do it, or I do want to give something a go.
It's an amazing experience to have, and what I love about TV, because occasionally I do some stuff in TV, is that they can set up the most extravagant process that can really create life-changing experiences for people, because you wouldn't have had that in the real world.
No, not at all.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's a fascinating story, and I have been curious for a while as to what actually happened.
No, great stuff.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Welcome.